welcome to the Rivals In-Law Podcast, episode 10. We're your hosts. I'm Sam.
I'm Daniel.
And today we're going to take a little bit more of a deep dive into what we expect to see from the Packers and the Saints, as well as talk about maybe some offensive rookie of the year and defensive rookie of the year.
Also going to do some post-draft. Now we have some more kind of numbers and data on who the players are actually going to be.
For sure.
So we're going to maybe do some updated kind of that depth chart, looking at that. And like you said, we might do some projections of like how these teams might fare this year, which is going to be big.
Yeah, for sure. Well, Daniel, how about you kick us off a little bit? You're excited about the Saints. You're excited about what's going on. Give us a little kickoff. There's a fly that's just trying to distract us, but we're not distracted from the point here. It's almost football season.
It's almost. We're hoping it's almost. We're a little ways away, but we feel like after the draft, we are in it. And I was literally checking, like, man, I want fantasy to start up.
We had a little second wind going on. We're ready. We're ready. You got the draft came up. You got some transfers that came up big in college football.
Yeah, yep. But the deadline for that.
Came and went, and so players are no longer immediately eligible unless special circumstances. So I'm ready for football season, man. Let's get started.
Me too. All right, sweet. So I think what we'll first do, like we said, is cover kind of an updated depth chart now that we got some new players. There isn't a ton of shift, but I want to just kind of give us an update of kind of what we're looking at from the Saints perspective. If you're a Saints fan, tune in. This is kind of what it's looking like shaping out for this next year. And, of course, there could be some random free agency signing that we might see, but this is kind of like the main basis that we're going to be looking at. So I'm going to kind of go down the list, and this is I'm kind of drawing from a website, Our Lads. They've got some great information, and I'm making a tweak here or there. But as we go down, we start off at quarterback. We've got Derek Carr, the guy we've signed. And again, I've covered it in past episodes, but I think he is this is a rejuvenated season for him to take the helm. And so
this is a prove-it season to show that he's got what it takes to be a top 15 quarterback in this league.
Yes. And, pretty wild. I didn't think it was going to happen, but Jameis signed. Jameis Winston re-signed and is on the team. And so it gives you a little bit of a security blanket.
Agreed.
It's like you don't have just a rookie behind you, but they did grab a rookie as well. And that's
Taysom
where
Hill.
Yeah, Taysom Hill as well. So you've got some security behind Derek Carr, but I feel a lot better with Derek at the helm. So at running back room, you're looking at so this might change, and we're going to talk about projections. But right now, I have Kamara slotted in at the 1, leading that. But as we all know, we're waiting to hear back on a suspension. Could it be a game, 2, 6, the whole season? We don't know. And so I'm going to put him at RB1. And if he's out, we got Jamal Williams at 2. Again, he's a team player. Everyone loves him, coming from Detroit. And then that Kendre Miller, who we drafted, will be slotted at 3. So I feel pretty good about the running back room if Kamara is there. That's a pretty stout room, which I'm excited about. If he's not, we're going to take a step down. So looking at the receiving core, we've got headlining it again, man. It's just been a roller coaster with this guy, Michael Thomas. So we've got Michael Thomas at your 1, which, again, we'll see if he stays healthy. We'll see what happens. We know he has the potential to be one of the best receivers in the NFL, and maybe this will give him a new rejuvenation with the Derek Carr to make that connection. So you got Michael Thomas at the 1. You've got Chris Olave, who's really panned out.
He's been a great pickup for the Saints. Really good job drafting him.
He was right there in offensive rookie of the year last year with Garrett Wilson.
Which is his old teammate.
Yes, right. Two Ohio State guys.
That's good.
They're pushing for the wide receiver year. So you got Chris Olave, and then
pushing, but they're not.
Yeah, exactly. And so another interesting factor, I don't know if we've noted this, but Jarvis Landry is still a free agent. And so we haven't technically re-signed Jarvis Landry.
Which I don't think is a huge deal. Look, I'm a Jarvis fan, but I don't think he's a guy that I think he could offer consistency when he can stay healthy. He had trouble staying healthy last year.
Yes.
So I don't know if the Saints really should allocate funds toward a guy that we're not guaranteed to see play 17 or 18 games and he's not I wouldn't even say he's on the back end of his prime. I think he's past that.
Yeah, it was at the very end, and I think this is why. I mean, there's a couple of reasons why they didn't re-sign him. He is older, but I think he did get injured at the end of last year. He's getting older, and so I think that's why they didn't re-sign him. So I don't have him slotted in a starting position, and so I had Michael Thomas at the 1, Chris Olave at 2. Kind of our slot instead of Jarvis. We're assuming that they don't re-sign Jarvis would be Raheed Shaheed. So this is a lightning in a bottle guy who kind of came out and had a lot of big flash plays last year. And he's hungry, man. And so I'm excited to kind of have him at that slot.
Right.
Even with Jarvis out, he's a young guy, really speedy. He's also going to slot in our kick returner, punt returner. And then as we look at, a couple of just like depth pieces, you got Traquan Smith, who honestly has never really panned out, but he's back there. You have Keith Kirkwood is another kind of backup guy. And then I have A.T. Perry slotted in kind of as he could really step into either Michael Thomas or Chris Olave. They drafted him from Wake Forest. He kind of fell. So as we kind of use that draft kind of analysis, he's a 6'4", big receiver, had great production at Wake Forest, who could really fill in if one of those top guys gets hurt. And so then looking at our line, as we go down the list, left tackle Trevor Penning. So this is a guy who was a rookie last year. He got hurt, and so this is a big kind of step up to see like how this guy does. And, if it doesn't pan out well, we've really got to kind of figure something out, because him at left tackle, you got Andrus Peat, big solid guy at your left guard who you feel really great about. Eric McCoy, this is another draft pick a couple years back. He's your center. Cesar Ruiz, and so this is a guy we didn't pick up the fifth-year option on Cesar Ruiz. And so at this right guard position, I have him slotted at the 1, but our pickup in the draft, Nick Saldiveri, I heard this guy's just a dog, and he can really, I think he played like left guard. He played guard and tackle in college. Senior Bowl, they asked him the game of, hey, we need you to play center, and he killed it. He did an amazing job in the Senior Bowl at center. So he kind of markets himself as this like kind of versatile guy. He's hungry, and so I could really see him overtaking Cesar Ruiz. Again, they didn't pick up his fifth-year option. That might give him some fire under his belly to really perform this season. So that's what I'm kind of thinking at the guard position. And then at your right tackle, Ryan Ramczyk. And so you feel really great about having him there. So again, the line, we got some solid pieces, but also there's some questions with Penning, with Ruiz to kind of see what pans out. But it's good that we have Salvaderi, who's very versatile, to kind of fill in some of those spots.
Yeah, definitely have some depth. Remember we got Storm Norton, or the Saints got Storm Norton from Los Angeles this offseason.
Yes.
So they have some depth that I really think is going to end up paying dividends throughout the season, because as we know, it's a long season and people get injured.
Yeah, and there's a name. I just want to say the name. Calvin Throckmorton. He's a backup for Andrus Peat, so we'll see what happens to Throckmorton.
Yeah, we'll see.
But looking at tight end, again, this is something I touched on in our just post-draft analysis, but we did re-sign Juwan Johnson, so he's your clear number 1 tight end, kind of more blocking, receiving back. And then you got Taysom Hill. So you got the jackknife who's going to fill in at tight end. He might step in at Wildcat, running back. You might not know where he's going to be, but those are really our 2 tight ends.
Punter, kicker, Taysom Hill does it all.
Yeah, Taysom Hill is everything. So that's like what our offense is looking at. Again, I'm pretty excited about getting Derek Carr is, of course, the biggest piece. Mm-hmm. We'll see what happens to Kamara. And if that kind of stays how it is, I feel pretty good about this offense. They've got some playmakers. It really depends upon the suspension for Kamara, which kind of affects my projection.
And I think so. Just a little, and I'm not the Saints guy, right? So just looking briefly.
But you're in the state.
Yeah. So A.T. Perry, he's a sneaky pick to put up some big numbers. So as you said, he's a big guy. So he's 6'3.5", 198 pounds. That's a big guy at receiver. He ran a 4.47. Super quick, athletic type of guy. Had a 1.59 10-yard split. Really just one of those guys that I think I could see him competing for his fair share of snaps because of how athletic he is. Yes. And so especially with Derek Carr, you have that ability to stretch the field. I can see him moving up even to Rashid Shaheed's spot or on those 4 receiver downs. They got Trayvon Smith, super athletic, super quick guy, slant guy. But I really see A.T. Perry challenging for a lot of snaps.
Exactly. I was about to bring up, you got shotgun sets, 4 wide receiver, 5 wide receiver.
Right.
Put A.T. Perry in there. Let him make some plays. He's quick. He's tall to really get some balls. So we'll see what happens. And, again, I think the rookie minicamps are about to come up. So we'll kind of see how – I don't think they've happened just yet. Maybe they're in them right now.
They just started.
Okay. Well, we'll see how he performs and some other guys. And, again, there's another guy to watch. Kendre Miller, and this is just an interesting comment. I don't know if you heard this, but it was either a tweet or an interview, but he said, he's coming for Kamara's spot. As a rookie, coming and making some big claims. But who knows? I mean, if Kamara's suspended, he's going to be rotating in immediately, which
he's going to have his fair share of opportunity. I mean, remember, Kamara was a third-round pick.
Yeah.
He didn't come in, expected to start.
Same as Miller.
Look, Miller's, third round, 23rd pick. Kamara was the 17th pick. So he definitely has an opportunity. Granted, Kamara ran the SEC. Kendre Miller ran in the Big 12. So,
We're bringing it back. We're bringing it back.
The guys are bigger in the NFL, Mr. Miller. So good luck.
We'll see what happens, though. It'll be exciting. I'm sure he's hungry to compete. So that's what your offense is kind of looking at.
What's the defense looking like, Daniel?
Yes. So I'm about to go to defense. Okay, so this is where we really needed to fill some gaps. We've covered this, but and they addressed it. So this is what it looks like. Just a rough look at it from the spring as we look to the fall. So of course you got it defensive end Cameron Jordan. This is your foundation piece on the defense, heart and soul. He's been there forever, but this is his last year on contract. So we're gonna see there. But you plug him in at one of the edge spots. And then if we're looking, so we're going left to right, put him at the left end. At D tackle, one of those is Nathan Shepard. So this is a free agent signing from the Jets.
Correct.
Which was a good pickup, and they really had to kind of make some moves to kind of fill these spots out. And so I think at this spot, and what I think will happen is there's going to be a rotation, but it's either going to be Nathan Shepard or Kalen Saunders from Kansas City, 2D tackles they signed in free agency. And I'm just going to put it out there. I think Brian Brzee is going to take that other tackle spot. So I have Cameron Jordan at the left edge, Nathan Shepard at 1D tackle, the other D tackle, Brian Brzee. Again, I think that's the one rookie who has a real legitimate shot to be a day one starter.
I'll say this, as far as Nathan Shepard, I know a lot of people projecting him to be the starter. Malcolm Roach got extended, or they brought him back.
That's right. Okay. Yep.
I can see him. I know that right now a lot of projected depth charts have him as a second string, playing behind even Brzee. I can see him even challenging Nathan Shepard for that spot if he's able to be consistent. You never know. I mean, I think he's only a 4th or 5th year player, so he's got some juice in the tank, obviously.
Big boy too.
Yeah.
And so right now I have Nathan Shepard, Brian Brzee starting at D tackles, but again during the season there's going to be a big rotation of Nathan Shepard, Kalen Saunders, Malcolm Roach, and Brian Brzee all kind of going in and out. And then on the other edge you have Carl Granderson. So I was trying to pull up, Sam, if you knew Granderson last year. He had a fantastic PFF grade. He had a 80 grade. From 2021, he had like a 63 grade. Last year, he had an 80 grade on PFF.
Yeah, he's only 26 years old.
Yeah, so he had a big jump. And so I have him slotted at the 1 at the edge right there. And then as you look at the other draft pick, a rotation piece for Cam Jordan and for Granderson is Isaiah Foskey. And I was looking at this man, dude. He looks like a man child. I was looking at the draft. If you saw I don't know if you saw the reaction, but him and his family, he was fired up, man, just like passionate. So I'm excited to see this guy again, how he fares in rookie minicamps. Isaiah Foskey, he'll be a depth piece, but he could have potential. Who knows? I think he's really going to learn from Cam Jordan, learn from Granderson to eventually step into that position as a starter.
Yeah, Carl Granderson actually had last year 5.5 sacks opposite of Cam Jordan. So, look, he's not your guy that's going to set the world on fire, but he's a consistent guy on that edge, and I think he's I think it's a contract year for him too. I think this is the last year of his contract, and so I would not be shocked to see Carl Granderson. I wouldn't be shocked to see him stay. But I wouldn't be shocked that if he has a good season, if he has more than 7 sacks, to see him get a contract because people are hungry for defensive edges that are ends that are able to offer that kind of production.
Exactly. So it looks a lot better than it did kind of going into you got that big piece with Brian Brzee to kind of be in that rotation.
Right.
So you feel a little better there. Linebacker, that is anchored by Demario Davis. So again, him and Cam Jordan, I think, are your staple pieces. He's locking down that middle linebacker. Pete Werner, a guy who really stepped up last year at the weak linebacker. The will linebacker really came in. I thought he did a fantastic job. So Demario Davis and Pete Werner, I think your one kind of not weakness, but Zach Bond is slotted in at that other linebacker position. Good guy, but he just doesn't stack up to those other two. So a little weakness there, but I think you have two solid linebackers right there. As you're looking at cornerbacks, I've got Paulson Adebo, who played pretty well, I think, last year, and then Marshawn Lattimore, of course, extreme talent if he stays healthy. Again, that's something he's had concerns with.
Somebody I'll have kind of in the – and so remember, Taysom Hill, who the Saints love, obviously, he was – I believe an undrafted signee Green Bay got, stuck him on his practice squad, and then he ended up going over there.
That's right.
Another guy that started with Green Bay, I think he was in Jacksonville last year, and now he's with the Saints, is Ty Summers. So he's second behind Zach Bond at that Sam linebacker, and so we'll see. He's from TCU. Let me try to reach back in the memory banks. He's from TCU. He arrived there to play quarterback.
Wow.
Did not work out, so he put on some meat. He's a football player, man. He's one of those guys. He put on some beef, and he was like, hey, if I can't throw the ball, I'm going to stick people. That's what he wanted to do.
Dang.
So we'll see.
That's awesome. It feels better now you say that to have a little more depth at that linebacker position. But yeah, we got corners, Paulson Adebo, Marshawn Lattimore. At safeties, you got Mr. Tyrann Mathieu, homeboy coming in. It feels good to have him back for another year in the system, kind of lead that secondary with Marcus May at our free safety. So you got Tyrann Mathieu at the strong safety, Marcus May at the free safety. And then for nickel packages, you have Bradley Roby, who used to be on the team. I think he was on the Texans, came back to the Saints. So it feels good to have another guy there. And as we look at, again, depth pieces from the draft, Jordan Howden was a safety out of Minnesota. Mm-hmm. He's going to kind of slot in. He's a free safety guy kind of behind Marcus May. So it feels good to have like a little depth right there. And another guy I just want to touch on, when Adebo went down, this was another rookie from last year, Alontae Taylor from Tennessee, had some good games. So, again, I think it feels good to kind of draft a couple pieces. As you look from the draft, Brian Brzee, Isaiah Foskey, Jordan Howden, we had some pieces that'll fit in there.
And remember, the Saints got Jonathan Abram, which I'm a big fan of, played for Mississippi State, got signed by Oakland or drafted by Oakland, then he went to play for Seattle, I believe.
Okay, yeah. So he's on the Saints?
He's on the Saints. He had a stretch on Green Bay, not a stench. He was not stinky. I mean, he didn't play, so he might have been. But super athletic guy. He's just had issues staying healthy. So we'll see, but he offers some depth behind Tyrann to see if he can kind of add to that, to the mix.
No, for sure. That'll be good to have. No, I used to have him on my Dynasty fantasy team. He had a lot of picks that year, so it feels good. Yeah, he's right behind Tyrann Mathieu. So that's your offense and your defense. I'm going to touch a little bit on special teams.
Okay.
But again, just defense. You have Dennis Allen, defensive-minded coach. It feels good that he kind of secured some spots that were kind of shaky at in the draft. And again, we'll see how these guys perform in the offseason. Special teams, you got Blake Gilligan. I say Bryce Gilligan. There was a guy elementary school named Bryce Gilligan, but this is Blake Gilligan.
It's been a couple years since Bryce. Okay.
Yeah, exactly. Then we got Will Lutz at our kicker. It feels good. He was actually hurt, and so it feels good to have him back. And then again, like I said, your punt returner, kick returner, Raheed Shaheed, electric guy. If he gets loose, he could really pop one out for a touchdown. And it looks like they signed a undrafted free agent, Lou Headley, who's also a kicker. No, actually a punter, I think. And so we've got him. And again, some of these undrafted, there's a lot of guys deep in this list that could show out, and you'll never know who makes the cut. I'm not sure when that day.
They also could not show up at all. So
exactly.
That's the point.
Exactly. But yeah, so that's the overall look at the Saints. And I'm going to wait off for my projections until we hear your depth chart, and then we can kind of go back and forth about projections, kind of maybe a key standout player. And I'll just say it now, a key standout rookie, I think he's going to make the most immediate impact is Brian Brzee. And I talked about that kind of in the depth chart, but I think that's a guy who could potentially be a day one starter, and feels good to have that on the defensive line. Championships are won right there, O-line, D-line, so it'll feel good to have him there. So
yeah, look, as far as being somebody who's outside of the Saints camp looking in, but obviously, like you said, being in the community and seeing a lot of pieces on the Saints, as a guy outside looking in, I think the Saints have a pretty good roster.
Pretty solid, yeah. We've had holes in the past, and it seems like in these, post Sean Payton, we had made a lot of moves, a lot of trades to get up and get it was kind of like busts or nothing. And it sounds like, this draft, we really kind of had some solid foundational pieces that can kind of more round out our team. And we're not kind of just blowing it on these high electric picks, but it seems like we have some good pieces in place.
For sure. So. Well, let's talk about the Packers, right? So Packers, I think the Packers had a outstanding draft. I really do. When you look at some of the guys they picked up, Grant Dubose in the 7th round, is one of those guys that really sticks out. A lot of people had him as a 3rd, 4th round grade, and they picked him up in the 7th round. He was one of the highest rated receivers coming out of the FCS, and so he's a guy that I think can be. I think the Green Bay Packers picked a lot of guys that can be immediate contributors. So let's go down the list. I'm gonna start at the QB position because that's the most obvious.
Yes.
So Green Bay, they're putting all their chips in on Jordan Love. They signed him to an extension already just to cover next year, so they don't have to worry about the 5th-year option, but also guarantee him a little bit more money and security. That way, if something happens this year, a portion of it is guaranteed for next year. And so they have Jordan Love. Look, I went to the same thing. Our lads, as a source, I disagree with some of theirs that they have. So they have projected Sean Clifford. I don't think Sean Clifford, which is the rookie they drafted out of Penn State in the 5th round with the 23rd pick in the 5th round. 2023 draft at the 5th round. I don't think he's gonna be a second string quarterback. I don't think they're gonna want to go into the into the league year, into the schedule with a rookie behind Jordan Love. I think they're gonna go and either sign a veteran, or I think Danny Etling's gonna make the cut.
Wow.
He's been in the system now for a couple of years. Look, he's got some wheels on him. It's fun watching him because he's like, hey man, look, he's been in the league for since I believe the 2022 season.
Earlier than that.
Season.
Yeah, it was like 2019. I don't know.
He's been there for a minute.
He's been there, maybe 2018.
He kind of floated around. I know he was with the Patriots at one point, but it's funny. With the Patriots and with the Packers in preseason, both, he broke out runs for long runs, like 30-plus yard runs. I don't think anybody expects him to have the wheels on him that he has, but he does. And so I think he's a guy that can offer stability and a veteran presence for Jordan Love. I don't want to be wrong. I think he's been in the league either about the same amount of time or just one more year. So either way,
and going on, I want to, before you move on from quarterback, I don't know if you were about to, but Jordan Love, I'm excited to see what happens. Man.
Right.
I'm excited to see kind of what plays out with Jordan Love.
Yeah, I think Jordan Love's going to be – I'll get to that because that has to do with the projection. So I think Jordan Love's going to be first string. I think when you go – and then I'll start off at wide receiver. So Christian Watson, I think he's going to be a wide receiver 1. And that mainly has to do with the fact that he had a really good – back half of the year last year. He had his breakout game against Philadelphia. He did really good against them. So I'm interested to see what he's going to do with a full, healthy year ahead of him. I think he's going to be a stud, man. I really do. I think he's going to be a guy that you're going to look at and be like, I can see why they took him. I can see why they took a flyer on him. So they chose him in the early second round of the 2022 draft. Romeo Doubs, they chose him in the 4th round. I think he's going to be wide receiver 2. He's another guy. Early on last year, before Christian Watson kind of established his place, and he was dealing with injuries and inconsistencies, Rodgers singled out Romeo Doubs. He really liked him.
You mentioned him, like it was a whole thing of this guy has potential.
Yeah, and then, so first rookie that I can see starting for the Green Bay Packers is going to be a slot receiver, Jaden Reed, coming out of Michigan. So they chose him in the 2nd round. Michigan State, I'm sorry, not Michigan. Chose him in the 2nd round. He's a guy that has a lot of similarities to a Randall Cobb.
Okay.
So he's a guy. He might not be Tyreek Hill fast, But he's a guy that can play the slot. Really big on contested catches. People.
Who is this again?
Jayden Reed.
Jayden Reed. So this third round.
He got chosen in the second round.
Second round. Okay.
So
wow.
after they chose Luke Musgrave, they chose Jayden Reed.
It was before Hyatt.
Before Hyatt,
some of these
was
guys
still available,
yeah.
and so there were several other guys that were. So Green Bay liked what they saw. So we'll see. I think he's going to be really good. Now after that, there's guys that are kind of in the mix for it. You have Samori Toure, who's coming back. He was a seventh round pick last year. He had some production last year. Not a super athletic guy. But I'll tell you this: Dontavian Wicks played at, I can't remember if it was Virginia or Virginia Tech. I didn't check on this, but he's from Plaquemine, Louisiana.
Whoa!
He was a 4-star recruit coming out of high school. And the Packers picked him up in the 5th round.
Wow!
Which was a great pickup. I think he's going to be one of those guys. When you look at his tape, he's not a flyer. He's not the fastest guy in the world, though he's not slow by any means. And he's a guy that I can see just really being a consistent second and third threat, right? So whenever Christian Watson's doubled up, I can see him being a guy. So he only ran a 4.62. He's not the fastest guy in the world, but he's 6'1", 206 pounds. He's a big boy.
Yeah.
So I can see him definitely becoming a contributor. He did go to Virginia. He was a senior when he came out. He's a guy that's got a lot of experience. So Dontavian Wicks, look for him to make a splash. And then
Wicks.
Grant Dubose is another guy. I think he's got a lot of value and potential to contribute right away. So that's the receivers. You got some other guys behind them, but those are the 4 guys I really see, or 5 guys that I really see contributing right away. Offensive line. So you got David Bakhtiari coming back. A lot of people. First of all, let me just talk about David Bakhtiari for a second. A lot of people.
Sounds like Dave Bautista.
The dude's a stud. So first of all, he's consistently rated when he's not hurt. He has been consistently rated as a top 3 offensive tackle in the NFL.
Wow.
At one point, he was the highest paid, and I believe Trent Williams surpassed him. Which, I mean, hats off to Trent Williams. He's an absolute stud. But he's a guy that you see in you see playing for Green Bay consistently year after year. Do you know now? For somebody who doesn't know Green Bay, I can totally understand not knowing this. Do you know when he was chosen?
Who the lineman?
Yeah, David Bakhtiari.
No.
He was chosen in, and let me click back to it, the 4th round of the 2013 draft out of Colorado.
Wow.
So just one of those diamond in the rough. So David Bakhtiari, I hope he's healthy. He stays
Buffs,
healthy.
huh?
He do what? Yeah.
Go Buffs before Dion, huh?
Old Dion has the most transfers leaving his school of any school. But I got to give Dion this. Dion said it was going to happen.
Yeah, he did.
He said they're not going to like him at first because of the standards. And it's not like it's for all the right reasons you're seeing guys leave. It's because he's telling them, hey, you're not wearing a hat in the building. You're not doing this. Like, hey, hats off. I hope Dion just crushes it.
We'll see
and look, in the Pac-12, it's not hard to crush it. So
the cuts are deep here.
David Bakhtiari, left tackle. Left guard, Elton Jenkins. So he was chosen in the 2nd round of 2019. I believe it was from Mississippi State in the 2019 draft. He's a guy that had some issues staying healthy last year. Hopefully he can get back to being healthy because he's an all-pro guard. He moved around all over the offensive line wherever we needed to. The plan is for him to get back to guard because he's really good at guard. At center, you have Josh Myers. I think he's a guy that can really be continue to improve. They chose him in the 2nd round of the 2021 draft. At right guard, John Runyon. So he's a guy that got a lot of attention. A lot of people were saying, hey, if he's not going to start, they're probably going to trade him. Behind him is Royce Newman, who's a guy who filled in a lot of places last year. And then at right tackle, Zach Tom, another guy.
Zach Tom.
2 first names. 2022 draft, 4th round. And then behind him, listen to this one, Yosh Nijman. Not Josh Nijman. Yosh Nijman. Look.
That's a name you got to throw out there.
He's another guy. So Royce Newman and Yosh Nijman, both guys that they attracted attention. Like, people thought they might get traded because people needed some consistent linemen, and they showed up pretty good last year. So I think the offensive line, if they can stay healthy, has the potential to be a really good offensive line for a guy who's in his 1st year starting. And then you have at tight end. So, look, in years past, Green Bay has not had a flyer at tight end, a guy that could really move since Jermichael Finley. Does that even ring a bell?
Yeah, it does.
Yeah,
for me,
so from Texas.
way back.
And so he was awesome, and then he got hurt. I believe he had a neck injury that really just left him just down and out. But he was projected. He was on the trajectory, I should say, of being a Kelsey, of being a Rob Gronkowski, just a really good tight end. And so I can see him, or Luke Musgrave, I can see him filling that role. So they chose him in the second round this past year. They were their first pick in the second round. Comes from Oregon State. I'm really excited. So he doesn't have a lot of stats because he got injured last year. So he's got, and that's not something Green Bay usually does. Green Bay's usually big on production in college before they draft him. But he's a guy that I really think can come out to be the best tight end of this draft if he can stay healthy. So he's 6'6", big old guy, 6'6", 253 pounds. And he's pretty athletic. He ran a 4.61 with a 1.5 yard, 10 yard split. Super athletic, can change directions. He's a guy that can't, because of his athleticism, he doesn't just catch the ball and stop, but he can keep going with it. So he's a guy that I really think can challenge the middle of the field and that seam in the middle of the field. So I'm excited to see him. He's another guy who's projected to be a starter. That is, if they don't bring back Mercedes Lewis, which as a Packers fan, first of all, Big Dog, I love you. I don't know what are the chances that you're going to listen to this, but I think you're one of the greatest Packers to ever touch the field because of all of his character.
That's a bold statement.
He's not the most productive Packer, but he's just he's a locker room presence that a lot of people love being around. A lot of people want him to come back. I can see him coming back. He hasn't ruled it out yet. He's been in the league forever. One of the best blocking tight ends, if not the best blocking tight end in the NFL. And he even got a touchdown or two last year. So he's a guy that I can see coming back. But Luke Musgrave as a starting tight end, and then Tucker Kraft as a second string. He's another guy they picked up in the third round. So right after they got Jaden Reed, they went back to tight end. They went right back in that well, like you like to say. And they went Tucker Kraft, guy from a small school, North Dakota State, I believe. Played for the Jackrabbits, right? And so, but he's another guy.
South Dakota State.
South Dakota State,
yes,
thank you.
That's Jackrabbits.
Yeah, you're right. North Dakota State is the Bisons, right?
Bisons, yeah.
Yeah, so South Dakota State, played for the Jackrabbits. He's another guy. He's athletic. He's big. He can make some things happen after the catch. The biggest thing is the dude's a football player. So he's one of those guys that, according to interviews and people that played him, when you saw him, you did not want to see him. Like, if you saw him on the other side of the field, you're like, dang, we're playing against that guy. So he's a guy that I'm excited to see get on the field. He's kind of your prototypical Packer, too. Just a hard-nosed, blue-collar guy from a small school. Look, nobody wants to move to Green Bay, Wisconsin. Let's be honest. It's cold. There's not much going on. Green Bay's population is, I believe, 108,000, something like that. Somebody check me on that. It's like just barely over 100. Lambeau Fields holds 88,000.
That's crazy.
So, and
that's crazy.
Yeah, it's insane, but not a big place. But after that, some veteran presence, Josiah DeGuara. So they got him in the third round of the 2020 NFL draft. He's a guy that they can move around, and I still think he's going to play a large part in this offense. And so that's tight end, offensive line, receivers, and quarterback. At running back, Aaron Jones is back. Look, Aaron Jones is one of the best running backs in the NFL, right? I think everybody agrees on that.
I see he's top 10, top 5.
They drafted him in the 5th round of the 2017 draft from University of Texas, El Paso.
Wow.
Super small
Did not
school.
know that. Did not know that.
Yeah, not a real big school, but he's turned out to be a really good running back. He's also turned out to be a really good guy. So he's a military kid. His parents were in the military, both just moved around all the time. He's really respectful. I hope he comes back and just, I think, let me say this. Matt LaFleur, and this will get into projections a little bit, so I'll hold off a little bit, but Matt LaFleur's offense is more of a run first, pass quickly type offense. He's not going for the home run. He's going for get the ball to your playmakers and let them make plays. I think Aaron Jones is going to have the best year of his career.
Wow.
I really do. And that's saying a lot because he's had some really good years. After that, you have A.J. Dillon.
Another great running back.
Another great running back. So A.J. Dillon, let me see if I remember this right, but PFF, I believe, graded him as the best running back to come out in the 2020 NFL draft.
Wow.
And so he
could start. I think he could legitimately start at another
Yeah,
team.
absolutely. So he had some injury issues last year, and of all accounts, that dude came back to Green Bay this year, getting ready for the offseason and for OTAs and all that. The dude is rocked up. Like, apparently he's huge. They already call him Quadzilla, the Quad Father. Saquon, sit back. It's A.J. Dillon. Look, I can see him really playing well. Fullback, Henry Pearson, and I know nothing about him. I just know that he's a rookie, and they're projecting him to play fullback, so that's cool. And so, look, this offense, I think, has the weapons to be very QB-friendly for a guy that's in his first year. Defense. I think defense here, and this is what I'm most excited about, I think the defense has the players to be a really good defense. Now, I think there were some issues with the scheme last year, but I think it's also because Rodgers was throwing certain games. He threw 2 or 3 interceptions. Look, against the New York Jets, he threw 3 interceptions. So they're going to have a heyday with him in practice. But Kenny Clark is going to he's going to anchor that defensive line. He plays left defensive ends. He plays more of a defensive end, defensive tackle type position. Not a nose tackle right over the center, but look, he moves all around. He's just a really good defensive lineman, but he's going to start off at left edge. Colby Wooden out of Auburn's right behind him. He's a guy that a lot of people had graded as a round 2, round 3 pick. They picked him up in the 4th round. So he's a guy that I think could really challenge for starting snaps. TJ Slayton. If he can stay healthy, he's going to be nose tackle, so he'll be right over that center. I think he's the guy that if he can stay healthy, he's going to be real productive. I'm excited about this. So at right defensive edge, Devontae Wyatt. So first round, 2022, out of Georgia. He did not play a lot last year for whatever reason. Some people said it's because he was injured. Some people said it's because he couldn't touch the field because of practice issues. Whatever it may be, the guy's got insane athletic traits, and so I think he's a guy that can come in, and I think he's an upgrade on, man, why his name's escaping me, but I believe he's in New York now. He's a defensive edge that moved on to New York. I can see him really being an upgrade from that, and so after that you got Preston Smith out of Michigan State. Look, shout out to my buddy Isaac Parker. He wanted to make sure everyone knew that Mississippi State was defensive line U, which. Look, You look at Montez Sweat, you look at Preston Smith, there's several guys that came out of Mississippi State.
Dude, I remember Preston Smith at LSU, man. He'd wreck shop.
Yeah, I mean he's and last year he was a good football player. So I could see Preston Smith. He's going to continue to hold down that left offensive linebacker. Right behind Preston Smith, Lucas Van Ness, first round pick this year. They call him Hercules. He's a beast. I mean, just you talk about man child. Yeah. This guy is a man bear child. Like, he's huge. Man bear child. His offensive. His athletic measurables are off the charts. I can see him even pushing for that starting position. I think they're going to move him in there. Look, 3 years ago, because 2 years ago he was injured. 3 years ago, Zadarius Smith, when he was at Green Bay, they had certain packages where they got Zadarius Smith, Preston Smith, and Rashawn Gary on the field at the same time, along with Kenny Clark. So that means taking out the defensive tackle. That means taking out the right edge, whatever it may be, moving it around to where all 4 of those guys were on the field. It was an absolutely incredible package. It was something that they looked to exploit the next year, but Zadarius Smith was injured. But I think he's a guy that Lucas Van Ness, he's a guy you can move around all over the place. He's 270 plus. He's not a small linebacker by
kind of like a TJ Watt, kind of like
a TJ Watt. Yeah, that's a lot of this.
Okay, cool.
But bigger. I mean, he's bigger. TJ Watt
is a big human being.
Yeah, this guy's huge. Devondre Campbell. So if he can get back to 2019, 2020 All-Pro level.
Oh man, he was big time.
Yeah. So we just need him to get back to that place. Quay Walker. So he's last year he had some issues where he let his emotions get the better of him. Yep. However, I will say this: he played really well last year at times. He had flashes of just greatness. If he can be better, I think it's not only going to elevate his game. Obviously, it's also going to elevate Devondre Campbell's game because he's not having to hold his hand as a rookie. So you have there Rashawn Gary. He was that guy that I referenced. They picked him up first round 2019 draft. A lot of people were scratching their heads wondering why would they do that. Rashawn Gary is just an athletic anomaly. And last year, or 2 years ago, he showed it. And last year, he was on his way to another big year, but he got injured. I believe he tore his ACL. And so he'll be back this year. Hopefully he's back and he does really well, because if he does, he's going to get a really long extension. At cornerback, you have Jair Alexander, which, look, top 5 cornerback in the league when he's healthy. And so if he comes and he stays healthy, he's going to end up being a really big contributor. Obviously, either way, healthy or not, even a half Jair Alexander is as good as most other cornerbacks. Behind him, you have Eric Stokes. And so Eric Stokes had a really good rookie year. Last year, he was injured a lot. He is out of Georgia as well. Picked him up in the first round of the 2021 NFL Draft. I hope he still stays healthy, because if he does, he's another guy that can be a top 15 cornerback if he stays healthy. So we'll see. I don't like this at safety, but there's really nowhere else to go, because Green Bay has said that they're going to do this because there's nowhere else to go. Darnell Savage. So he had a drop-off last year where at one point he got benched for Rudy Ford, and then Rudy Ford played really bad, and he got benched for Darnell Savage. If Darnell Savage can get back to how he played 2 or 3 years ago, because he was taking a 2019 NFL Draft first round along with Rashawn Gary, if he can get back to that, he's going to end up being a big piece in this defense improving. However, in the 7th round of this draft, they took from Iowa State Anthony Johnson Jr., which I mentioned that in our previous podcast. I think he's a guy that, for whatever reason, he fell. And there's probably a reason he fell. However, if he can overcome those reasons, I think he can be a really good contributor and a guy that could even push for certain reps. Tarvarius Moore, free safety. Rasul Douglas is going to be the starter on the opposite side of Jair Alexander. Rasul Douglas, he's got ebbs and flows, but I'll say he's for the most part consistent. He has times where you're scratching your head, you're wondering, how in the world did you give that up? He has other times where you're like, how in the world did you pick that off? So he's not as consistent or as good as Jair, but he's a guy, he's taller, he could challenge those bigger receivers. I think he's going to be pretty good. And then you're going to have at nickelback Keyshawn Nixon. Now, Keyshawn Nixon's also going to be our kick returner and our punt returner, or kick returner. I think he's going to be our punt returner as well. Some people are projecting Jaden Reed to be that punt returner. And Jaden Reed actually said, when they interviewed him, they said, hey, what's your take on taking back punts? He said, get ready for some house calls. So, look, he's confident. I like it. Keyshawn Nixon is going to be at the very least, our kick returner and our nickel back. Super athletic guy. He's actually Snoop Dogg's nephew.
Okay.
So, for whatever that means. But he's a guy that I think he can be more than what he was last year, which was just a special teamer. And then at special teams, you got Anders Carlson out of Auburn. I don't think he's going to make the roster, Daniel. I don't think he's going to make the roster.
This is the kicker.
Less than 60% kicks over 30 yards.
I don't know how
Daniel,
they drafted him.
An extra point is 25 yards, isn't it?
Yeah.
So how in the world? I don't know. Daniel, didn't you kick in high school?
I punted. I didn't.
Your brother kicked.
My brother's a very Will could hit 40 plus yarders.
Will.
I think he had a 50 at one.
The Green Bay Packers are taking tryouts. I'll say that. But Anders Carlson, I think he's going to get cut. I really do. I don't think he's going to make it. And I think Mason Crosby will come back on a veteran minimum. You have Pat O'Donnell from Chicago. He's going to be our punter. And so that's kind of how the roster shapes out. Overall, I'll say this. If the defense can be more consistent, I think this team could be just as good as the team last year.
Yeah. I mean, it would really be interesting to see, again, what Jordan Love does. You know, this is his time, you know?
Well, the biggest takeaway I took from the draft, right? So, first round, when they took Lucas Van Ness, Njigba was still available. Jackson Smith and Njigba. Yeah. What does that tell you that they took a defensive edge instead of the best receiver in the draft?
They feel confident with what they have.
They're confident with what they have, and they're confident with Jordan Love.
Wow.
They don't feel like they need to pad him up with talent. Now, they took a ton of talent later in the draft, but clearly they didn't feel like he needed Jackson Smith and Njigba to be more successful. They clearly feel like he can be just as successful because of the weapons that he has and the talent he possesses. So that was my biggest takeaway. I was very happy with the draft. I think you're going to see a lot of sprinkles of talent from this draft in the roster for this year, but we'll see.
That's good. Yeah, and I just want to touch on mine from the draft perspective from the Saints. I know I said last time, like, pretty average. I feel pretty good. Now as I look at the depth chart as a whole, I feel like they filled the gaps they needed to. And they didn't reach, like sometimes they do in the past, but Sean Payton would just, like, trade everything to get up to you know, 5 more spots. And so I feel pretty good looking at it as a whole now.
Right, for sure.
And so what I want to do now is kind of shift towards, before we move to one of our last segments of offensive defensive rookie of the year, give a little bit of projection. So I think the official schedule with the dates, with the times, is coming out soon, but we have like the
home and away.
But just overall,
sure.
I'll give it to you first for the Packers. What's a record projection? And you can kind of give some more, where could they excel? Where's some weaknesses just overall with the team?
So let's start off with this. Last year they went 8-9, and Aaron Rodgers played at statistically a mid-quarterback level. That's not a shot at Rodgers. He had a broken thumb for most of the year.
That's right.
He had rookie receivers that he was trying to teach him. So he had a lot going against him. However, either way, one way or the other, statistically, he played as a mid-level quarterback. So with that being said, the roster, for the most part, is objectively better. Other than at quarterback, it's objectively better. Christian Watson has another year. Romeo Doubs has another year. They drafted some more receivers. The defensive line got bolstered up. Offensive line hopefully is healthier than it was last year. So overall, the roster has gotten better. So with that being said, the 2023 Green Bay Packers, I project, will go at least 8-9.
Okay.
And so if Jordan Love can play average, as in the 17th, 16th, or 18th best, no, that's 17th, 16th, or 15th best quarterback in the NFL, then I think that the Packers can do just as well as they did last year. Because you got to think, against the Giants, who lost that game? The Packers, but why'd they lose that game? Rodgers had a turnover.
That's right.
Against the Jets, they were in that game. For most of that game, they were competitive in that game. He threw 3 interceptions.
Gosh.
And so those are 2 games that, and look, I'm not saying Jordan Love will win you those games, but the thing is will Jordan Love lose you those games? That's the question. Will the mistakes keep you from losing? So the Packers have home. They play the Bears, the Lions, the Vikings. They play them home and away. Look, I'll say this, Trevor, this is for you. I think the Lions are the best team in the NFC North right now.
Wow.
I think the Vikings are taking a major step back. For people that think the Vikings are going to be just as good as they were last year.
It was a magical run. I don't even know how they squeaked out as many wins as they did.
We'll talk about it later. But overall, they got really lucky last year. They were a fraudulent team last year. And so I think the Packers will be somewhere between second and third best team in the NFC North. So they have the Bears, Lions, and Vikings. They play the Chiefs. You can put that down as a loss. I mean, it is what it is. And look, I'm not saying I don't believe in the Packers, because the Packers gave the Eagles a run for their money last year. And so I'm not saying that they can't win that game, but I don't project them to win that game. They play the Chargers. I don't project them to win that game. They play the Rams. I think they can win that game. It just depends on Matthew Stafford, but that team is not as talented as it was 2 years ago. They play the Saints. That's going to be a toss-up.
We'll see what happens.
Like, in all honesty, if Derek Carr plays average, I think the rosters are pretty comparable to each other.
Right.
They play the Buccaneers. I think they win that game. And then away, they're going to play the Falcons. I think they win that game. They play the Panthers. I think they could win that game, but we'll talk about that in a little bit, because the Panthers have a little bit to do with our next segment. They play the Broncos. I think they lose that game. I think Peyton is going to turn that ship around. I think he's going to get Russell Wilson on pace to do well. The Raiders. This can be interesting. Devontae Adams is going to be playing Green Bay again. I think Jair is going to lock Devontae up. That's wishful thinking as all get out, but we'll see.
And we'll get more in depth with these
matchups. We'll get, and then they play the Giants and the Steelers. And so, yes, the Steelers is going to be an interesting matchup. I project the Giants to win that game. But either way, I see it an 8-9, about an 8-9 record. So how about the Saints, Daniel? What do you think the Saints are going to do?
So my projection for the Saints. So again, I like what you did, Sam. Let's take a look at last year. So the New Orleans Saints went 7-10 last year in 2022. And as I look at last year's depth chart, last year how it shaped out, I think we have objectively a much better roster.
Agreed.
There's one thing in question, though. And so with our roster is the Kamara situation. And so we went 7-10 last year. And as I look back, we were in a lot of those games.
Correct.
You know, I think back to we blew. I mean, if you're a Saints fan, you were right here with me. I cannot count how many games we blew at the end. I think of the Buccaneers when Tom Brady came back like 16 points in the fourth quarter. What was that a result of? 2 interceptions.
Right.
You think back to the Arizona Cardinals. Again, this was just like knife in the chest, everybody. If you remember, Andy Dalton threw 2 pick sixes back to back. And so there was just many games literally thrown away. And so that could have been shifted completely if we had a quarterback. And so that's why I'm very confident about this year, but also here's what I have. I'm factoring in that Kamara is suspended at least 6 games. I'm going to give the Saints a 9-8, and that's conservative. I think if Kamara is there, Kamara, everyone says it, something different. But if Alvin is on the team the whole season, I think we have more of a 10-7, 11-6 kind of year.
Sure.
I mean, honestly, if everything stacks up, because we honestly did not lose much. If you look at anything, it's on the defensive line, but they kind of filled it a little bit with Brzee. They free agent signings of the Jets, the guy from Kansas City. We have a lot of those pieces there with an upgraded quarterback. And so if Kamara's there, we could potentially go a 10-7, 11-6. That's on the high side. But I'm going to say projection 9-8, which I think might be enough if the NFC South is anything like it was last year,
right,
to potentially take it or
right,
potentially sneak in that wild card.
Yeah, and I mean, you look at the game against the Cincinnati Bengals. This was a perfect example. It was 30-26, and in the third and the fourth quarter, the Saints only scored 3 points in each one of those quarters, 6 points total. And that had to do with turnovers by the offense because Andy Dalton didn't have the behind the ball that I think Derek Carr will. I think that's really it.
Like, there were so many games.
Underpassed balls. It really wasn't that he was making bad decisions. I just don't think he had the zip that he wants to have, and I think that got away from him. And so, and look, the defense played pretty well. They at
the end. So yeah, I think the past couple of years, the Saints have had top 5 defense in the NFL. They fell off beginning of the season. I don't know what happened. They were I don't know what the numbers were. They were on the backside of pass defense, everything. But then I forgot what game it was. Something clicked. It was either the Falcons at home, some game, everything switched, and at the end of the season they really stepped it up. And so if they can bring that same intensity, and that's what I'm hoping, there'll just be some new energy this year. You have some consistency with Dennis Allen now. If Derek Carr brings some oomph to someone like Michael Thomas, some of these pieces they've had who have been underperforming because of lack of talent at quarterback since Drew Brees, it could be scary, if they put it all together. But again, we're one injury away from a lot of that falling apart. So, my projection is 9-8, and that's factoring in some type of Kamara suspension.
For sure. I think that's a good projection. I even told you. I think it's conservative. I think the Saints have a potential to do even better. I think they're coming in with – I think the biggest question mark, I don't even think is Alvin Kamara, is can Derek Carr deliver?
I think
Jamal Williams is good enough to be a
we saw it last year.
Well, you got to think about it. With Alvin Kamara had a subpar year last year, right? So he had less than 1,000 yards rushing. He didn't have too many yards receiving. I think he only had a couple hundred.
He was hurt every now and then. But Michael Thomas wasn't there at all. Yeah.
So if Michael Thomas comes in and contributes 600 yards receiving, not his typical 1,500 yards receiving, just 600 yards receiving, and gives Derek Carr another outlet to throw the ball to, you have to believe they're going to be more productive than they were last year. And so I like your approach.
We'll see. It'll be exciting again to see some of these pieces come together. Again, we're far out. Things could shake up in the offseason. But it's exciting to now take a look at it now that we know the draft is in place to see, okay, what could these teams look like? What do we project? I think we're just antsy for the season. So
for sure.
But our last segment is just going to be one little touch on as we're coming off the draft. Who are our official takes on offensive and defensive rookie of the year? And so what we'll do is we're going to do a quarterback.
Right.
And so you're going to take the quarterback.
Right.
And then we'll do for offensive rookie of the year, we'll do a quarterback, best pick, and then a non-quarterback. I'll take the non-quarterback.
Okay.
And then we'll both give a defensive rookie of the year.
So you go first, Daniel. Give me your offensive rookie of the year non-quarterback.
Okay. So I think you're looking at a couple guys here. I think there's 3 guys on the list. Potentially another receiver, but I think your main 2 guys are Bijan Robinson, Jahmyr Gibbs, maybe a Jackson Smith and Jigba, Zay Flowers. But I'm going with Bijan Robinson. Okay. I think this guy, during the offseason, clearly beats out. So I think Cordell Patterson is there, and then Tyler Algiers, who was a running back drafted, I don't know what round last year by Atlanta. I think they've been talking about using Cordell as more of a receiver. He started out like that, but he's kind of getting older, kind of moving him out. I think Bijan comes out day one as your starter, and I think from day one, and he has a solid season. And I think as you look at Atlanta, I forgot who their coach is, but leans heavy on the run. I mean, with Atlanta last year,
Arthur Smith.
Arthur Smith, yeah, they had, or is he the manager?
No, he's a
head coach. Okay, so Arthur Smith. I mean, you had Drake London, and you had Kyle Pitts. You had some talented receivers, and they did not honestly have like big production at all last year. They relied a ton on the run game. And so I think a Bijan at Atlanta is a place to thrive. I think they're going to rely on him heavily. And so I think he could really push to even pass up a quarterback, which will be. But I know there's a lot of quarterbacks as well. So.
Well, let me play devil's advocate really quick.
Okay.
And we're not going to spend too much time on this, but let me just say this: Atlanta. Why I'm worried about Bijan Robinson, because the dude is special. He really is. He's really, really good. Super athletic. Ran a sub 4.5 at running back. He's not a small guy. I believe he's 5'11", 215 pounds. That's a big running back. My issue with it is, can Atlanta give him a productive place to play? So at the end of the day, anybody is going to agree that in today's NFL, that running back needs to catch the ball, and I think Bijan Robinson can.
Yeah. It makes him a little different from a Derrick Henry. He might have the size close to him, but he also has some catching.
The question is, can Desmond Ridder get him the ball?
Yeah.
Or Taylor Heinicke get him the ball?
That's true.
That
would okay. So I guess my argument, you can keep going, but my argument is that they don't have that quarterback. I think I don't think it's a place to thrive from like they have the best team, but I think just from a usage standpoint, they're going to have to rely on him.
He has the potential.
From a usage standpoint.
Yeah, I agree. And I was actually having a conversation with Trevor actually about how I think he's going to have Bijan Robinson, or Bijan Robinson's going to have Derrick Henry type of production as far as usage is concerned.
Exactly.
Now, will that translate? Because the Tennessee Titans had one of the best offensive lines in football whenever Derrick Henry was getting that usage as a rookie, and as a sophomore and a junior, and so on and so forth. I don't know too much about the Atlanta Falcons offensive line. I know that Jake Matthews, their left tackle, is a good left tackle. They're projected to have a left guard, a rookie left guard, and so that that's the question: is can they get him those holes to run through? The other thing is my concern is, are we going to bend so much on Bijan Robinson that the defenses can just account for it to where they stack the? Because the thing is, Derrick Henry, when they stacked the box against him, was still 6'2", 235 plus pounds, and he was moving as fast as Bijan moves at that.
Yeah.
You stack the box against a Mack truck, it's coming through.
It's true.
Is Bijan Robinson going to be able to do that? I'm not saying he won't, but my question is.
And so that was I was between Jahmyr Gibbs, and again, I think Jahmyr Gibbs is a great talent, and I think he'll have a great year.
Yeah.
It's just on a usage standpoint, I think he's split in that backfield more than Bijan being more of a feature back of like the one, and I think Jahmyr would split that with who's still there.
Well, they just brought in the running back, and his name is
Montgomery.
Yeah,
David Montgomery. So I think that there might be some split usage there. So that's my non-quarterback. But what do you think from a quarterback perspective? Who has a chance to take this?
So we're let me pivot real quick because I feel like I have to give a counter to what you said.
Okay.
And this was not plans, but I think that if I had to pick a non-running back or a non-QB. I think if I'm going to go running back anyway, and there's some receivers that are going to challenge for it, but I don't think Jackson Smith and Jigba, who's probably
he's got
the most
DK
likely.
Metcalf there, Tyler Lockett.
Well, not just that. He also has Geno Smith, who's not, and as much of a success story as Geno Smith is, he's not your guy that's going to air it out. I'm going to go Jahmyr Gibbs.
Okay.
I think he's going to have a better year than Bijan Robinson, and this is why. That offense is built for a Bijan Robinson, Jahmyr Gibbs type talent. It was already one of the best offenses in the league last year, and so if Jared Goff plays as good as he did last year, that's going to be pretty good. If Hendon Hooker is able to take his spot and play even better, you got to believe Jahmyr Gibbs is going to be part of that plan.
Oh, Hendon Hooker at the Lions. Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
So and then you have Amonte Brown with just another year under his belt. They brought back Marvin Jones Jr. They got Josh Reynolds from Tennessee, and so you got to believe that they have some different talent that I think can lend itself to Jahmyr Gibbs being really productive. A lot of people, even though they got David Montgomery, they have him slated as a starter, and so we'll see. I think Jahmyr Gibbs is a lot more of a every down back rather than a gadget back like a lot of people think he is.
Right.
So let me go to my QB1, and I believe you're probably going to have a counter considering what I just did. My guy for offensive rookie of the year is Bryce Young, and that's not that might be a little bit of a bias, but that's not solely biased, and this is why. So first of all, let me say this. Don't hit me. I think the Panthers have a chance to win that division.
No way.
I'm not saying they're favored by any means, but I think they're better than Atlanta.
Okay.
I think they're better than Tampa Bay.
Yeah, I think so. I think, dude, it might be between the two.
I think it's between the two, and this is why.
But, yeah, there'll be a lot of factors.
There's a ton of factors. I'm not saying they're the clear-cut favorite by any means. I still think the Saints are the clear-cut favorite, but I think the Panthers are going to be more competitive than people think. So they got Adam Thielen from Minnesota. I think Adam Thielen is going to be a guy that's going to come in, and he's probably going to have a pretty good year because he's going to play strictly slot. He's not dependent on, or they're not going to be dependent on him to make a ton happen. He's going to be able to be that savvy veteran that's going to get open. They're bringing back, they're bringing DJ Chark, which is a former LSU receiver that has had some productive years. They got Terrace Marshall, who's another former LSU receiver, and so they have that going for them. Their offensive line, for the most part, it's pretty. So they have Bradley Bozeman from Baltimore, who's also at Alabama. They have Taylor Morton, who they got in 2017 in the second round. So he's older, but he's a guy that has had really good. They have a good offensive line. They have their left tackle Ikem Ikwana, who was first round last year. And so they have a good offensive line. They have Hayden Hurst from Cincinnati, who I think can again be a contributor to that offense. They brought in Andy Dalton. Now look, the Panthers head coach, who I can't remember his name, Frank Reich, said, well, if Andy Dalton wins that job, it's Andy Dalton's job to win. Bryce Young has to earn it. Baloney. Bryce Young's going to win that job. I'd be shocked if we got halfway through the season and Bryce Young was not the starting quarterback. I do think there's a chance that he doesn't start the first few games, but I don't think that's going to eliminate him from being there. And then at running back, they brought in Miles Sanders, who's a really good receiver out of the backfield as well as a runner. And they have Chuba Hubbard, who I think is underrated, who's going to be that second string running back. So they have a pretty good team, and that I think is going to come out to be. And then they have Shawnette Jr. from Jacksonville, who was a pretty productive receiver last year, that they traded for this year. And so, I'm just saying, I think he's got a chance to be Offensive Rookie of the Year, and I think he's got a chance to be more successful than not, especially in that NFC South, where unfortunately the last couple of years, the team that has been the least worse, not good, just not as bad as everybody else in the division, has won it. I mean, last year, look, you think about it, last year, it was like week 15 when Carolina finally dropped out of the race. Atlanta had been dropped out of the race.
Oh, it was like the last week. Everyone was still on it.
Yeah, it was ridiculous. It was like week or two. Yeah, you're right. Everyone except for maybe Atlanta, but Atlanta might have been in it.
Right.
Was still in it, and so where that was decided. So that's my pick: Bryce Young at QB Offensive Rookie of the Year.
I could see Bryce. I don't know about the point about Carolina winning it all. That's a little hazy for me, but
I bet that's hazy for you. You getting scared over that?
Oh no, bro. Yeah, I just think that they, I think what carried them even to what they had was Christian McCaffrey was still on the team until like end of the year. There's a couple pieces. I think they just need a little more
Christian McCaffrey left in week 4, I believe.
Was it 4?
Yeah, that's the trade deadline. Week 4.
Okay, well maybe so. We'll see. We'll put that out. We'll see when it comes around to the season. But a counterpoint, I'm going to be really quick on this.
Sure.
I think you got to go C.J. Stroud. So the Texans, as they're shaping out, if some of these guys get healthy, they have some actually, as I'm looking at the roster, projected roster, they have some pieces. And again, this is dependent upon how people are healthy, how they're performing. But C.J. Stroud, you got a rookie running back last year, Damian Pierce, got a nice running back to pair with you in the backfield. They got Dalton Schultz from Dallas. I didn't even know they got him as tight end, one of the most productive tight ends.
Right.
You have John Mechie coming back, your guy, and again, he's coming back from cancer. We'll see if he's healthy, so that's a weapon.
Right.
They signed on Robert Woods. Again, it wasn't super productive, but a great talent out of Tennessee. And then Nico Collins, a really underrated guy who was one of the better receivers in the NFL last year. So, again, depending upon usage and with the Texans, again, I guess they signed Will Anderson on defense. Typically a team that's playing down.
Week 5, by the way, was from Christian McCaffrey.
Week 5, okay. So usually playing down, I think he just has the opportunity to put some numbers up. You've got some playmakers, so it'll be interesting to see. But that's my counterpoint to QB who might take it as well.
Who you got for Defensive Rookie of the Year, Daniel? Who if you're looking at this, and now look, let's keep in mind, the cool thing about Defensive Rookie of the Year is it's not a running back or quarterback award, which Offensive Rookie of the Year usually is. Or really, did a receiver? Yeah, I think. Receiver won it last year.
Yeah, Garrett Wilson. Yeah.
With defense, I think it's cool because it spreads out a little bit more. So let's see who you got for Defensive Rookie of the Year.
So I'm going to a guy who I kind of harped on in the draft process and who I covered. I'm going Jalen Carter. Again, this is a super raw talent. But putting him at defensive tackle with the Eagles, just a big body. I think they have the playmakers on that D line to kind of make a quarterback really scramble, and I think they might take that up the middle. Jalen Carter could be right there, just making this disruption. So I got the big guy out of Georgia, Jalen Carter. I know there's off the field issues. I know there's question marks around him. But if you look, I think he has the biggest upside in this draft class. And so, I just think he's going to be a disruptive force right at the middle for running backs trying to come through, quarterbacks who are moving around.
For sure.
Take him down. He's quick as well, big, just a monster. I'd be afraid to line up against Jalen Carter. So I'm going to go him for Defensive Rookie of the Year.
I wouldn't be scared. Jalen, this is your call out. I'm just kidding. I'd be terrified. For my Defensive Rookie of the Year, I'm going to go, and again, it's not solely biased. It's just a little biased. I'm going to go Will Anderson.
Someone get this guy 2 Bama plays right now.
So, look, this is why, and there's a lot of reason behind this. So, Defensive Rookie of the Year, the last 2 edges that have won that was Will Parson and Chase Young. Not Will Parson. Micah Parsons. Sorry. Who's Will Parson? Micah Parson won it. Micah Parson had, I believe, 12.5 or 13 sacks, and Chase Young had less than 8 sacks. I believe he had like 7.5.
Okay.
So the league has a big emphasis on sacks. Like, you don't need to necessarily get, the NFL, single sack record, broken to win Defensive Rookie of the Year. I'll say this. I think Will Anderson has the motor to get double-digit sacks. So I did a little look up, right? So they're going to play. These are the guys that they're playing. And I want to point out how many sacks I think that Will Anderson's going to get in these games. So they're playing Cincinnati, who Lyle Collins is injured. They don't know if he's going to play. And then Jonah Williams is requesting a trade. So Burrow's been one of the more sacked players in the NFL. So I could see him getting at least a sack and a half against the Bengals. They're taking Atlanta, which if it's Taylor Heineke or Desmond Ridder, either way, I could see him getting another sack and a half. So that's 3 sacks right there. They're playing Baltimore. I'll put him up for 0, which I don't think will happen because I think because of the way that Lamar plays, I think that lends itself to sacks. But we'll put him down for 0 against them. He's playing Bryce Young in Carolina. You got to believe he wants to sack his former teammate that Nick never let him sack in practice. So I'm going to put him down for 2 sacks against them. So that's 3.5, or that's 3, and then 2, that's 5. And then they're playing the Indianapolis Colts, which it's either going to be Anthony Richardson or Who else?
Not Foles. Why am I blanking?
Either way, they're gonna. I think he's gonna get at least a sack and a half against them. So we're at 5. Yeah, 5. So that's 6.5. Then they're playing Jacksonville. We'll put him down for 1 because I think Trevor Lawrence is one of the best pocket presence quarterbacks, and so we'll put him down for 1. That's 7. Against Cleveland with Deshaun Watson, I think he's going to get 2. So that's 9. Pittsburgh, Kenny Pickett, he's going to get 1 at least. So that's 10. And then the list goes on. But what my point is, about 3/4 through the season, I think he's going to have over 10 sacks. And so we'll see how that pans out. But I think he's in a division where, I think he's playing a schedule where he can have a lot of sacks and a lot of production. And because of that, I think he's going to end up lending itself to getting him Defensive Rookie of the Year.
There we go. Well, you heard it here first on the Rivals in Law podcast. Again, as we recap, just kind of hit the depth chart, an update on what happened since the draft. We got some projections. And again, these will all tighten up as we get closer to the season.
Yeah, we'll do some more analysis. We'll get some official depth chart, and we'll let you know our thoughts on the official depth chart, on the official schedule, and that'll of course affect. Look, I'll say this: if Hendon Hooker somehow wins the job from Jared Goff, I don't think he's out of the question as an Offensive Rookie of the Year candidate.
True.
So
no, for sure.
There's some guys
horses, for sure. So yeah, before we close out, again, I just want to thank everybody for tuning in. If you're listening on Spotify, we're trying to, well, first off, hit a 5-star review. It's up there in the corner. It helps get the show out more. If you're on YouTube, hit subscribe, share the video with friends. And we're trying, we haven't gotten it up yet, but we want to get on Apple Podcasts, other platforms, so we can all hear. But yeah, we just want to thank you for tuning in. We're going to have some social media updates of the past couple episodes coming out this week. So thank you for tuning in.
Yeah, and look, this is episode 10, Daniel, and so
let's go.
We've gone double digits. So thanks again, and join us next time.
Thank you.